You know, I just don't understand why an emperor would have a clown be an important leader in their military. It just seems like... No, wait, Kefka, I wasn't talking about you! Welcome to Triple Click, where we bring the games to you. This week we're returning to Final Fantasy VI, and good news, Maddy and I are both liking the game a lot more. We've got some espers to shuffle, some octopi to sketch, and some statues to rearrange, so let's get to it. I'm Kirk Hamilton.
I'm Maddie Myers.
And I'm Jason Schreier.
And hello. Hello to both of you.
Hello.
It's nice to see you both. It's beautiful in Portland. I haven't talked about the weather recently, but it is beautiful in Portland. And I'm just telling the world.
Here we go.
The weather is really nice. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
It's beautiful in New York, too. And my daughter, my toddler, who's now almost 19 months, loves going outside. And she loves just sitting in the dirt and just scooping up dirt and putting it on her pants. And it's really funny.
Who doesn't love doing that?
You can't beat it. You can't beat it.
I love it too.
It's a great springtime activity. You know what is another great springtime activity is becoming a Max Fun member and supporting the creation of
that
podcasts.
Does sound like a good springtime activity.
Triple Click. So if you notice, if you listen to this show, you probably hear that we run ads for other Maximum Fun shows during our sort of ad break in the middle of the show. And all of those shows, they're all really cool. You've heard there's this like huge diversity of like talent and perspectives and all these people talking about all kinds of different things. That's Maximum Fun. That's the network we're a part of. And if you become a member of it, you pay a certain amount per month. There are different tiers, and then you support the creation of whichever shows you listen to. Maybe it's just Triple Click, maybe it's Triple Click and a bunch of others, and we each get sort of a portion of your pledge to support the network, and that helps us keep making the show. So thanks to everyone who has become a member to support us making this show. And the thing is, if you become a member, it's not just something you can feel good about. You get bonus episodes of Triple Click every single month. We do all kinds of things. Beans casts, we call them, which are spoiler casts about movies and video games. We talk about our favorite movies or our life stories. I don't know. We do all kinds of things.
Our favorite albums. Kirk can't figure out what his favorite album is.
No,
we talk
it's
about
impossible.
that for 6 hours.
You know what my new favorite... Man, I've been listening to Carole King Tapestry, one of the best albums ever made. Okay, we're not doing
I brought this up.
It shouldn't have even said
Maddie,
anything.
what'd you do?
That's my new favorite album, though. It's so good. Give me a break.
Those are on the bonus feed. You can hear that over there.
So speaking of bonus episodes, we are doing a Beans cast for April that's actually going to run a little bit late. So this is a two-part announcement. First of all, it's going to run at the very beginning of May, which is a week later than usual. They usually come out on Monday at the end of the month. The reason for that is that we are doing a Beans cast on the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. So just a big MCU spoiler cast chat about everything. And the reason we're making it a little later is because we want to get to the end of the first season or only season of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is currently airing on Disney+. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about WandaVision. Maddie has a whole bunch of thoughts on that I know are really cool. I've got a bunch of thoughts too. We're going to talk about just
Civil War,
all the movies, this whole...
the Avengers movies, Black Panther.
This whole Civil War, this whole Marvel world that we live in.
Yes, it's going to be fun.
We're going to spoil them all. So you got to watch every single movie and every show.
Get watching.
Or you could not do those things and enjoy whatever you want.
You just got to be caught up on your Marvel history for like your MCU lore these days.
Anyways, that's what's going to be our Beans cast for this month. If you want to hear that, become a member. MaximumFun.org/join. And thank you so much again to everybody who's become a member. All right, we have a video game to talk about, Jason. Take us away.
Let's do it. This week we are doing a triple play where all three of us play a video game, and it is once again Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI Part 2. Just as a quick refresher, we had a bet last year. We each made predictions. Whoever got the most right would get to force the other two to play a video game. Kirk and I both won. My game was Final Fantasy VI. We're playing that in the first half of the year. Kirk's game is Half-Life 2. We're playing that in the second half of the year. And you guys have both been playing Final Fantasy VI. On our last episode, you played up until the Opera House. On this episode, you have played through the end of the Floating Continent. So just a big old spoiler warning right now that if you haven't played Final Fantasy VI, if you're like not caught up yet to the end of the Floating Continent, if you're playing along and you don't want to know what happens, it will be spoiled up until then. Won't spoil after that, but we will spoil the big twist of the game, which happens right up to where you guys are. All right, let's get to it. Kirk, Maddie, What did you guys think? Have your thoughts, you both were kind of negative on it. Have your thoughts changed since we last discussed it? Kirk, you have a lot to say.
First, let me just say that, like, I know there's sort of a narrative around our first triple play of Final Fantasy VI that Maddie and I both just totally hated the game. Having edited that episode, listened back to it, and also played a 1/3 role in the creation of the conversation that was recorded, I know that I didn't actively hate it. I feel like it was
fair enough.
There were a lot of things that we struggled with about the game, and I can't speak for you, Maddie, but it's like it's more complicated than that, and I think to some extent I maybe came off more negatively than I really feel about the game.
Well, we focused on the criticisms, I think, a lot.
Yes, I think we did, and I think that that's just partly because you really like the game and we had these criticisms, so then that's like going to be the natural point of conversation. Yeah. There have always been from the beginning things that I really like about it. The music, which we barely touched on, is incredible. The whole overall vibe, it's nice, it's funny, it's weird, it has that Final Fantasy energy. I liked this part of the game much, much more than I liked the first however 20 hours that I played. This second 20 hours or 15 hours or whatever, I like a lot more.
I'd love to see your game timer.
It's kind of hard to tell. And the game has definitely sort of coalesced into more of a thing that just feels coherent to me, despite there's so many momentary incoherences to it. So just very broadly, and I have a lot of particular things, but very broadly, I really was actively having fun for a lot of the time that I was playing for these however many hours.
Maddie, what about you?
Me too. I also felt a lot better about the second 15 hours that I played, and I think that's probably about right for how long it took me. I would have to check my play timer after this. Of course, I'm using a walkthrough, etc. I'm using every trick in the book to get through this game. But I did enjoy the second 15 hours more, and I think it is because the tone is a lot more even. And I'm going to make a comparison here that won't benefit you at all, Jason, which is Sailor Moon. And I know you've never watched Sailor Moon.
I've never watched any anime.
I know, but I feel like the second third of this game really reminds me of Sailor Moon, and that's a compliment for the record. It's because it's not only because it's like, you know, a female fronted game about a girl who has superpowers and it's mysterious and she's figuring out who she is, etc. That's Usagi's narrative in Sailor Moon, of course. It's also the humor of the game and the tone of the game, and just the age group that I think the game is probably best suited for is like, you know, 8 to 10-year-olds, the age I was when I saw Sailor Moon, feels like just the right sweet spot for at least the second third of the game. The first third was a lot more vacillating between super goofy, like slapstick humor and weird sections that I was like, I'm not sure why this is here. The second third, there are still goofy slapstick sections. There's still Ultros. There's still like over-the-top anime villains monologuing, essentially. And that's all like, you know, Queen Beryl and Sailor Moon. And I'm down for that. And it's paired with just a lot of lore and world-building stuff that is revealed in a pretty fun way. And you're discovering more of Terra's story, which I'm enjoying a lot. And the balance between grinding in this section and story, I thought was more palatable to my tastes as well. So that's like the equivalent of Monster of the Week episodes and Sailor Moon and story episodes. So that's my comparison and my compliment for the second third of this game.
Yeah, I like that. Can I just share a list of things I liked that I have taken from my notes? They're very short.
Please do.
Okay,
yes.
The first one says, I like Ultros and it's fine.
Yeah, I do too. I liked him better this time. I was like ready. I was ready for Ultros, and I was like, now he's funny to me. I like this guy now.
Do you like how the way to defeat him ultimately is to show him a picture of himself?
Yep, and he's like, oh, I'm just this like sad old octopus, and he just leaves. There's always a funny thing with beating him, and just it's funny. I think the joke has worked on me. It's like kind of a Family Guy thing where you keep telling the joke until it becomes funny. But it did become funny. So that's one. The next one is I just wrote Kefka. Oh crud. I like how Kefka curses. I like that he just says crud. This is in our translation. We're all playing the GBA version. I enjoy that he says crud. I wrote, love the Esper human sex dramatization in the flashback.
Okay, yeah. Yes. I was going to ask you guys what you thought of this, because it's so funny that like the two are like, they look at each other, they've met like 2 seconds ago, and then it's just like, they like turn into stars and are like circling, and then a baby is made. I was very confused as a kid not knowing how babies were made. I was like, wait a minute, so this is how it works?
Well, that's how they're made, and this was the first time you saw how they're made. Finally.
Yeah, I was like, okay, okay, so I go into a monster fantasy world, and then
you
I
meet
become
a monster of
star.
your dreams, and you're a mere human, but you find true love together.
It's kind of like it's the 90s kid version of watching old cartoons where the stork brings a baby, only it's two stars from like an Esper and a human creating Terra.
It kind of reminded me of what you said last time, Kirk, though, about all the different ways that this game finds fun little camera tricks or like filmmaking tricks to explain something very quickly, which in this case is like sort of a kid-friendly version of a love story without bogging you down in a bunch of scenes where they talk to each other more. Like, I got it. It's like comical shorthand that they spin around and turn into sparkles and then they suddenly have a baby. But I also got it at the same time. It was a form of shorthand that worked for me, even though I also laughed at it. I enjoyed it.
It's funny, but it's romantic in its way. It's cute.
Yeah, it is cute. And there's nice music. And you're like, aw, that's Terra. And I'm pretty sure I predicted that she was going to be half Esper, half human on the last step. So I felt very vindicated that I was right about that.
Good job. It's worth noting that like a playable flashback, a lot of this, and I hope you guys, as I'm glad you're both enjoying this a lot more now, but I hope you also just like take a few minutes to think about like what this meant to back then and like the context of it all, because so many of these things were revolutionary in a video game. Like the concept of the cinematic stuff I mentioned last time, how cinematic the game is, but also like the concept of a playable flashback is just so like I had never heard of. I don't think there's any game that did anything like that until this. And then it would be iterated on late in Final Fantasy VII in the next game. But
it happens all the time now. It's like every game's got a playable flashback every time we turn around. Yeah.
But this really is, I mean, it's groundbreaking in how it switches characters and perspectives so often too. I mean, the playable flashback isn't just a playable flashback. It's a playable flashback where they put you into not just a different character, but in a whole different world, and they introduce it to you very in medias res, where it's just like, here we are in the world of the Espers, which is also like, I can see the influence on Undertale, which is just cool. It feels very Undertale-ish with the monster realm and the gate and all of that. As much as, you know, Undertale owed to Earthbound, it also kind of borrowed this. So I'm going to go through a few more of the things that I liked.
Please.
LOL, how you can use the bathroom in the Imperial Palace. Which does speak to a little thing that I think is enjoyable about this game is it's so big and it is kind of surfacey in the way that we talked about last time. Like it's, you know, it's kind of like they've got really shallow tools. So there isn't like deep physics simulations of anything, but because of that, they can do so much little stuff like that. And I just think it's funny how your character kind of squats on the toilet and there's like a toilet flushing sound if you happen to go use it. And there's so many things like that. Maddie, I'm also using a walkthrough from shout out to Caves of Narsh, which is like
you recommended this to me after the last episode. You were like, you should use this Caves of Narsh walkthrough, and I have been ever since, and it's a wonderful walkthrough. Kind of a belated suggestion to the listeners now, but
it's really great. It's a really intense walkthrough in some ways. Like the person who wrote it is like knows everything about this game. So if you wanted, you could do everything in it and literally like 100% the game and the bestiary and everything. But it's also just very charmingly written by someone who loves the game and like makes lots of jokes and is having fun as a writer. So anyways, I've used that and that's helped me find some of these little hidden things. Just like they're like, if you want to see, you know, an alternate cutscene that you would never see, like go to this house after going here. And it's made me realize, you know, the full breadth of like all of the little hidden things in the game, which do make it feel pretty rich when you like start to experience them and then realize that they're all totally optional and you can miss them. Okay, I just have a couple more. I like that Shadow uses a smoke bomb to escape a burning building.
Yes.
I very much enjoy that.
That's a perfect example of the kind of humor that this game does that I enjoy, where it's like, it's slapstick. It doesn't really make any sense, but it doesn't super matter because that's just enough humor within the realm of the world that it's cool, as opposed to, I don't know, the Serpent Trench. We don't need to talk about that.
So I think the concept of that is that he's using an item that has, in the game, like when in gameplay and in battles, it has the effect of letting you escape something.
Right.
So the concept is that like it lets you escape
That's funny.
this battle situation.
It's like using a Phoenix down to revive someone who dramatically died or whatever. It's like the joke equivalent of that. Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's funny because, and he's just a ninja and ninjas use smoke bomb, like in sort of popular fiction to escape things, but he's in the middle of this burning room and it's like, how is that going to get you out of here? But it does get him out of there.
Yeah, like everyone's passed out and there's no way he could like carry them all out in time. So he just puts down a smoke bomb. Easy peasy.
Man, Shadow is such a flake.
Okay,
He just
It's
fails,
unbelievable. Let's talk about Shadow some.
Yeah, you guys both saved him at the end of the
Yes.
first
I
hunt
did.
today, right?
I
Okay.
mean,
You'll learn more about
the guy
him.
only cares about money. I'm sure that's the only thing he cares about. And
You'll
there will
learn.
never
You'll
be
learn a
anything
lot
else
more about
revealed.
him. You'll learn a
Yeah.
lot more about him in the second.
I've
half of the
learned
game.
some things about him. So one thing worth mentioning that I already noticed is that Realm, who I love, I gotta say, are people mixed on
She's
Realm?
very
I think Realm
precocious.
is
I love her.
really
No, nobody's
charming.
mixed on Realm, and her music is amazing.
Her music is wonderful, and yeah, that's the thing. It's really just like when she comes out, the music plays, and it's very like Uematsu's Aerith's theme. Like they're different, but it just has that same kind of beautiful, sort of serene energy. And I'm like, I love Realm. Like the minute she showed up, I was like, I love this kid. She's great. And she has this ring that also works on Shadow. And that is this implication of this relationship between them. So you already start to see it. And this is an
Well, and
example
also
of,
Interceptor likes her, and he doesn't
Yes.
like anybody.
and the
Yes.
dog goes to save her. So that's pretty subtle. And I know I was sort of being like, this game is generally not very subtle last time. But anyways, I enjoy that there is subtle stuff going on with Shadow, despite the fact that he maybe sold us out to the Empire and also just keeps
Debatable.
leaving, and I have to keep unequipping him of all of his stuff. Fucking Shadow, just
Yeah, dude does
know.
not give a shit. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I don't even want to
No.
put anything on Shadow. I'm just like, that guy's not going to stick
Whatever.
around. Like I'm
Just
like
use
sort
the
of
ninja
half reading the
scrolls.
walkthrough, and then Shadow will disappear again. I'm like, damn it,
Yep.
should have been reading the walkthrough more. I'd never know when this guy's going to leave. Like,
Do you have more stuff on your list, Kirk?
no. It's fine. I do, but we can just keep moving.
Okay. All right. I have some things that I want to talk about with you guys. So first of all, I was actually a little worried you guys would bounce off. You would get really mad at the Magitech facility, which is the first thing you do after the Opera House, and that dungeon is a pain in the ass and
Kind of a
has
boring
tough
dungeon.
enemies. And is
it
annoying.
wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Good.
There are so many other annoying things in this game that didn't even
Okay.
register for me. TBH.
Good. But so one of my favorite parts of any Final Fantasy game, and this was like such a thing back in the day on the Super Nintendo and PlayStation role-playing games, is that moment where you first get the airship and you can explore the entire world.
Yeah,
And I
that
wonder if
ruled.
you guys had feelings about that when you first not when you actually got it after the Opera House, but when you first had access to
Yes.
flying it
could
yourself.
fly
Did you guys
around.
have, how did you guys feel about that?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I thought
you-
it was
you liked
super,
it?
super fun to fly around and go wherever I wanted to go and like do a
Did you
little
do some
grinding,
exploring?
get
Did
some
you go
more
find
rages
random
with
stuff?
Gao and like just go to towns that I had like kind of done a cursory once over with and just check things out. I mean, it opens up the world. I mean, it's very obvious for me to put it that way, but there is a huge difference between navigating the overworlds in the airship and not constantly getting belabored with all these battles all the time versus like walking around, trudging around, which is something that I know I complained about in the last episode, like how
Yep.
long it takes you to do everything. Even if hypothetically you had the ability to fast forward in this game, it's still a
Right.
lot of trudging around, and the airship really changes that dynamic.
Right.
Yeah. Also, the airship music is really good. Just to
Yes.
mention the music again, it's so
And those
like,
graphics, those Mode 6 graphics.
the world of adventure. We're setting sail on the skies. Like it just has this great energy. And yeah, I've been thinking a lot about friction just in general. It's sort of something I keep talking about that we talk about a lot in general. The idea of a game throwing up roadblocks and making things sort of hard to get through and like difficult instead of just being super smooth. This game has a ton of friction. A lot of, old RPGs from the 90s do, just because there's a lot of menus. They hadn't figured out how to streamline things yet. And yet, when they removed that friction entirely in some limited way, the way that the airship just totally removes random battles and makes it so you can just go start checking things off the list. Like if you want to go to the Veld and like go get some more stuff for Gao, go do it. Like go right away. And then just hop back in your ship. And that is really, really nice. Like the freedom comes from the fact that you are free of something. And what you're free of is like the thing you were kind of suffering through for the first, X hours of the game.
Okay, so you guys you go through a bunch of stuff. You do the sealed cave. You learn about the espers, blah blah blah, and then you get to the point where the emperor is like, "Actually, I've changed my mind. I don't want to fight with you guys," and he invites you to this banquet. What did you guys think? Sorry, Kirk, you wanted to say something?
Oh, I mean, just about this section. Yes.
Well, yeah. So I want to know. So before this banquet even starts, first of all, so you guys are both using walkthrough, so you might have known exactly what to do and like what to say. But
I'm
basically,
not at first. I started using the walkthrough halfway through because I was like, wait, shit, this is gonna matter.
okay, so first the Emperor makes you go around and talk to soldiers, and some of them fight you, and some of them try to waste your time. Kefka, if you run into Kefka during this part, he wastes your time, and you have like 4 minutes to talk to as many as possible. Then the banquet starts, and you have all these dialogue options, and it's like the first time in the game that you have dialogue options, and it's super weird. Then it turns out, and maybe you don't even know if you're playing this game for the first time blindly, but it turns out that everything you've been doing, talking to the soldiers and choosing dialogue, is on a point system. And the items you get after the whole thing are based on how many points you got. So, yeah, what did you two think as you were playing through this?
I really like this. It's kind of another adventure game set piece is how I think of it, which this is, you've had dialogue options before at the opera. So it's sort of similar to that, where you're being given these sort of dialogue tests that you then have to pass. It's really cool. It's like a great change.
But the opera, there's a guide first. There's like a music book first that tells you what the answers
they're
are.
they're not identical,
This
but
is
it's the
like
same
totally-
concept. It's a combat-free dialogue challenge that is more in line with an adventure game than with this kind of game.
Did you use a walkthrough when you were playing?
No, I mean, I've been just checking the walkthrough as I play, but I was like, no, I'm just going to play this and see how it goes. I unlocked some stuff. Like, I did okay. It's pretty clear most of the time what you're supposed to say.
Yeah, what
or
the
like,
best options are.
You know, what the best options are. And if it's not
you don't
clear,
want to offend the Empire. Yeah.
it's kind of scored like 5-2-1, I think, or 5-2-0 maybe. It's like the middle one is pretty much fine. Like, you'll get there. What I like about this is that it's super clear that this is sketchy. Like, obviously the Emperor like is going to betray you. He's this huge asshole. And I appreciated that all the characters are like, this is bullshit, like, be on your guard. Like, that they weren't all just like, yay, cool, we're all friends now. Like, that just was kind of nice that they instead wrote it to have the characters all be super suspicious. And even when Locke and Tara go off afterward, the rest of them are like, they're like, be on your guard, this is fishy. And then, of course, it does turn out to be a huge double cross.
Yeah. I also really liked the ongoing plotline with Celis for the same reason. I mean, that's just been happening throughout this whole time, like before and after that scene, where the characters are all debating, well, not debating, but kind of talking about whether or not they think she truly betrayed you or not, in a way that I found really realistic and fun to read, and just hear each person's perspective. Like, well, you know, she probably was on our side, or maybe she wasn't, or I don't know. And like, Locke obviously has feelings for her, and all of that added a lot more texture to the characters' motivations in a way that I was kind of missing in the beginning of the game. But by now I care enough about everyone, and also I felt like those exchanges were a little better written, so I liked it. And then I also enjoyed that it wasn't so heavy-handed that it was some big surprise when she was on your side in the end, because like, of course she is, and the characters kind of knew that, as opposed to being like, what? Oh my God, what's gonna happen? Like, they felt like people to me, you know?
Well, that's what's really interesting about the scene afterwards in Albrook with Locke and Celis in the middle of the night, where Celis is like really pissed at Locke for like even having a shred of like hesitancy and reluctance about her.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't take that as her being pissed. I took it as her being too upset to speak to him about any of it. But the fact that you don't know is part of what's cool about those scenes, because it's like, it's so open to interpretation in a good way, where it's very minimalist, and it doesn't tell you what the characters are saying or feeling all the time, and you can't even see their faces. So you really have to just look at their literal body language of these tiny sprites and be like, well, I think Celis is mad, or I think she's sad, or whatever, and you can just take whatever you think.
Well, what happened was the developers of the game listened to last episode, and they heard Kirk saying like, this is a game where everyone says what they feel, and we're going to change that for the rest of the...
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I think it's true that those scenes are slightly better written than others, or significantly better written than some other scenes in the game. And yeah, it comes back to that minimalism thing where they're doing a lot with a little, because they only have like 5 or 6 motions or something per character, and then a couple of unique animations. Like, they fall down, they kneel, they jump and look surprised.
For so many different emotions, which is kind of fun and interesting. Like, sometimes it's like a funny slapstick kneel, and sometimes it's like a just tragic grief kneel, or like any number of other
or it's
uses.
Taking a poop kneel, which is
where
you take
course,
a
the most important one.
Or vomiting on a ship, Neil.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it speaks to the creativity you can get from limitation.
Yes, I think that is very true of this game in general, and felt more true as they were sort of getting into these second layer emotional interactions between the characters. Now that they're all established, all 50 billion of them, including the ones like Cyan, who I'm just like, why are you in this game? Like,
I don't know.
You haven't even met them all yet.
No, I'm sure. God.
I mean, there were more introduced in this one. Like, we haven't even talked about Strago yet. Like,
Or
there's
Mog.
so
We'll get there, but they're two new party members that you guys haven't met yet that you can get in the second half. But yeah,
can't wait.
Well, but there's just this. There are things with that scene with Celis and Locke where she can look down, and like she looks kind of sad and thoughtful, and then she looks up. To her sprite is really good, and like Celis is a just well-designed character, like, and they're doing a lot of smart things with her. The fact that she's removed from the game for this big chunk, and then also the fact that you land with her after the floating continent and she's alone is like also really smart, I think. And I haven't really played past that, but like just the fact that the game takes you into the perspective of the one person who I've been the most curious about, at least even more than Terra. I'm like, but Celis though, like, what's her story? And that I like that decision to be like, after this huge, culminating moment, this giant twist, this shift into the second half of the game, and now here you are, it's just you and her, and she's like alone, and she has no sense of what happened to all of her friends, and like has to kind of set up from there.
Well, she's been like in a coma for a year.
For
a year, right.
Which is like an absurd, like Lost-esque, like sudden reveal of like, now also a year went by, and it's like, I don't know, it feels like a new season of television or something. We picked a good stopping point.
Just wait. Oh my God, Maddie, just wait.
Oh boy.
Yeah, okay, so, and then you guys meet Strago, we talked about Realm. Strago is another funny, silly character, kind of the stereotypical like old man mage. And I always enjoy it in the mage village when you like catch them using cure and fire and stuff, and they're always like cure. It's like they have some puns afterwards, like curio cabinet. That's it's so funny. Yeah. And then General Leo dies. Rest in peace, General Leo. Do you guys know that there were all sorts of rumors back in the day about how to revive General Leo, and like people wanted to bring him back? It was a whole big thing.
I think it's just like people don't really die in these games, so when someone does, it's very shocking.
No, they do. They always, Final Fantasy games since...
Well, they did have the little tricky thing with Shadow where it seemed like Shadow was dead for a hot second and then he came back in this game. So like I can kind of understand how then people would be like, Leo might come back.
And I guess you can let Shadow die, right? Like,
yeah, and that's Final Fantasy IV also killed some people, aka 2, the one before this. On the Super Nintendo. And then so with General Leo, he's like, you get to control him for a minute before he dies.
He's really good too. I wish he was in my party. God.
Yeah, that's the thing. People were like, why would they create him for combat if you can't get him in your party? And he's super strong, but
just for the sake of a dramatic scene, which is so much cooler. It's like,
which is awesome,
just for the sake of this one set piece.
Exactly. And it's like part of another great old school Final Fantasy tradition is like letting you play for a second as this guy who's super overpowered and like can't do it again, like with Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII and stuff like that.
Yeah, there are a few times this set piece here that we're talking about is when General Leo fights Kefka, and then Kefka kills him through all this trickery, and it's like Kefka's like first great betrayal when he betrays you on behalf of the Emperor before his second great betrayal when he basically betrays the whole world. And so that scene, and then also the later scene when Kefka betrays the Emperor, they're cutscenes that play out in the combat engine, like the side view combat engine. Yeah. I like that kind of stuff too. There are so few perspectives and types of sprites in this game that they can use that it really shows you like how they're just using every single piece of the game. Every time the Espers attack and rampage, I think it's funny only because it's a little clumsy looking, but it's really effective the way that the world shakes and everyone falls down, and then the battle vision versions of the like Espers come flying across the screen, and they're all huge and like more detailed, and it's like, oh god, they're pissed off, like they're in battle mode. I think that's
good stuff. Yeah, it's really good stuff, especially when some of them are like ones you already have in your party and you're like, wait a minute, what? But yeah. Okay, I want to talk about that one Edgar line because this is like a very controversial, very creepy
Do we have to? God.
I mean,
Edgar,
kind of. I don't know.
You're canceled.
It's like notorious. We're canceling Edgar.
We're canceling Edgar.
It's been so long.
He's
going to
delete his Twitter. We're going to fire him from the internet.
I want to say, so my initial interpretation of this is very charitable. So in English, okay, so in the Super NES version, they totally removed it. So in the line and I'm going to link in the show notes to legendsoflocalization.com, which is a great website, and they have an entire breakdown of what he says. So him and Realm, the context is they're leaving Thamasa. Everyone's leaving Thamasa. Leo just died. People are upset. Got to go after the Empire, et cetera, et cetera. Edgar, Realm says, what's wrong? Realm is like, how old are you? Realm's like 10. And then Edgar says something. So in the Super Nintendo version, the game I originally played, he says, you've grown up entirely too fast. Lighten up, okay? So totally fine line. Nothing at all objectionable about that line. In the GBA version, the version we all just played, he says, not even a lady yet. Here's hoping you're still around in 8 years, kid.
He also, the animation is him like smacking his forehead like, oh, I can't believe she's only 10. Like,
Yeah,
so much.
So Edgar is a character who hits on everybody in the game. So you
Yes.
would assume that,
and
like,
there
oh
are
my God,
other
like,
lines that I looked up because I was remembering like all the Castle Figaro ladies, like they all have lines as well where they're like, Edgar hits on everyone, young and old, and we just can't escape him. Like there are some kind of
scoundrel,
dire
yeah.
lines about Edgar.
So
in that
let me,
castle.
so my interpretation of that GBA version originally was, okay, he's just saying like he's really hoping that she makes it and she like gets a chance to grow old, and I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Then
precious.
I read what the original Japanese is.
Oh God.
Okay, so the Japanese version, and this is a translation by Clyde Mandolin for Legends of Localization. Realm leaves. She says, "I'm going on ahead," and then Edgar says, "Yeah, that'd definitely be a crime. I'd better just forget about it." So it's way worse in the original Japanese,
Yeah,
and Edgar is
yeah.
like a total fucking creep.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
Edgar is a
just
total
little-
creep anyway you slice it, really.
Yeah, he is.
But yeah,
He
Yes,
just is. Like
yes,
that is a
but
part of his
he's even
character.
worse
He
than
hits
Japanese.
it's
on
just even
everyone.
more egregious. Yes.
Anyway, moving on. I want to talk about the floating continent and then the
Yes.
end of the world. But before we
Sure.
do, I want to talk a little bit about the mechanics, because one of the things that happens where in kind of the break point where we left off is that you really get to know the Esper system, and you get a lot more Espers, and then you can start customizing all your characters with magic. And that's really when the game's combat starts to shine, because you can like really decide how you want to customize your party. What did you guys think of that? Did you like take advantage of the Esper system? Have you been rotating Espers to teach everyone magic and stuff?
I mean, I have been, but I don't love it. I'm sorry. I feel like this
You
is
don't
the part
have
of
to
the game where I'm
apologize.
just like, I am not a JRPG person. This
Yeah.
is too much spreadsheet stuff for me, and I just don't like moving little things around in the boxes enough. And that's it.
Yeah, a lot
That's
of
it for
menus.
me.
A lot of
Yeah.
menus.
But I like the rest of the game.
I like the theory of using an item and then having an imprint on you where you get the ability, or even just an ability once you level it up, and it encourages you to kind of cycle through things, and you can customize your magic build for each character. And I like the fact that it fits in with the lore of the world where there was no magic, and so your party members are all gaining magic through this magicite that the Espers have like sacrificed themselves to give you. Like, that's all cool. I don't like the
Yeah.
system just because it's like Maddie said, it's so much micromanaging, and like it's not just that. It's like it's hard to even read. It's just there's a legibility problem with the size of the screen and the fonts and how much they can fit, where you have to go into the Esper menu. You have to
Yep.
look at what percent you are on all the spells to see like where you're at, and like really keep everything in your head. And I'm like, it's a good system in general, and it has this thing that I'll actually talk about in one more thing with Monster Hunter, where there's a lot of this sort of really chewy, frictiony stuff where you're having to just get your head around these menus, and like these systems can be satisfying the more familiar you get with them. And it's why so many of these games, it's like, well, you'll like it after 15 hours, because after 15 hours, you'll have just gone through the damn Espers menu, which by the way is under abilities also. Like, why can't
Yeah,
they
like
just
why? There should be an Espers menu. Like whatever.
So it's
anyway.
but that's like one small symptom, right, of the same thing, that like all the
Yeah,
menus
it's
are
like
just a mess.
abilities, magic, but then you navigate up from magic to Espers, and
Right.
then you try to remember who has what Esper. It's
Right.
yeah, it's a lot lot of clicks.
There's a lot of stuff like that where I'm just kind of frustrated and bummed out by, like, even picking a party, like selecting someone and getting them down into the party box is like kind of hard. Like I still am sometimes accidentally.
I'm wondering if that's actually just the version of the game we're playing. Like,
Maybe.
Was it that hard on the GBA? It can't have been, right? Like you just use the D-pad, right? I know what you're talking about though. Like you have to navigate multiple times to get down to the box.
Yeah, because you grab them and then you have to go through the 2 rows that exist for all the
because there's 2 rows. That's why
that
you have to navigate multiple times. That's what you're trying.
There's some UI stuff.
So did you guys find that like the combat, you just didn't care about the combat, or you enjoyed it more, or enjoyed it less?
There were times when I enjoyed it. I mean, there were certainly moments when I would like figure out an attack or set of attacks that worked really well on an enemy, or I'd just happen into it, or I'd be like, oh, I remember this enemy type and this worked really well. And then those are like the satisfying Pokemon-esque moments where you're like, it's super effective. I found this thing that works really well in this moment and that rules. But more often than not, I was frustrated by something, and then eventually I would Google it and be like, what are this enemy's weaknesses? I just need to get through this. I mean, we're about to talk about the floating continent, which had a maze that I personally did not care for, and it also had the like timed battle at the very end that I did not personally.
Yeah, we'll get into
either.
that in a sec. Yeah, we'll get into that in a sec.
What's freshest in my memory right now are some of the more frustrating battles that I actually enjoyed less than the prior 15 hours of the game, where I was liking the battles fairly well.
So there's something to that, though, and I think that can kind of just tie in with how I feel about combat and also the floating continent in that dungeon, because that was the most challenging dungeon by far. Each fight is just like much, much more challenging. That's like where Behemoth turns up for the first time. Like there are just some enemies that really will kind of wreck you. And it's hard to totally gauge the combat. I mean, I guess I can say that I think the combat is good, even though I'm not really playing it in the right way, just because I like don't have the billions of hours that it would take to like really master the system. So I'm like looking at guides and stuff, and I have a party build that's like pretty sick, and I can just crush. Like if you know which abilities to use, the same 4 abilities from the same 4 party members will just kill everything in the game.
Yeah.
And like if you can, fast forward through combat, it's just like you kind of like get going, and this is kind of like if you're playing Final Fantasy VI in a modern context, the combat just becomes a different thing. And I don't know that it would really be possible, at least as an adult, to recreate like the feeling of the many, many hours that you could spend as a kid if you had just infinite time playing this game, like figuring it all out for yourself, which could be really rewarding and cool because it's so dense and complicated and clearly, well designed. And there's all these interesting interplays between like, weaknesses and strengths and different characters and summons and like party makeup. There's so much there. It's so unbelievably dense and varied. And I'm a little like skating through it just because like, it's just too much. Like it's so much.
Yeah, well, so part of it is resource management, and that's something that I think like if you're playing the most efficiently, then you don't really even think about that. But like the floating continent, especially, and with like the Air Force fight beforehand, when I was a kid, a lot of that for me was like managing my potions and like making sure that I was like killing things efficiently.
Cure spells or whatever.
Right, which I have like maximum number of high potions at all times.
Right, if you have a maximum, if you're playing like if you're optimizing and using the chainsaw and like the best spells on every single attack, then you don't even have to worry about that.
AKA doing Rising Phoenix in 95% of fights.
Yeah, well, just wait. In the World of Ruin, Sabin gets this ability called Phantom Rush that will just destroy everything. You'll see.
Yeah.
It turns the game into easy mode.
So to then come back around to the floating continent, there's a thing in these games that is just, I think, a bad feeling. And it's something that games don't really do anymore. And that's great. And it's just the feeling of being in a maze that's deliberately designed to be hard to read, like the floating continent, where you need to sometimes walk up to a corner and like the wall will just fall away for you to keep going. Or maybe there's a button you step on and you have to backtrack. Anytime you're somewhere like that, especially in this game, it's really easy to get stuck in a situation where you're like, I don't actually know where to go. And then I start to just feel stressed out because it's like, well, anytime I want to just go walk and bump into the walls over there. But to do that, I'm going to have to go and like trigger a bunch of fights and I don't know when they're going to happen. And this is like the reason, I think it's like the fundamental problem with random encounters that are just invisible on the map is it feels like walking through a minefield that's constantly changing. And even though I can win each fight, there's just this feeling of like, oh my God, another friggin' behemoth. and like, here we go again. I started just running away from every fight in the floating continent because I was like, I want to know where the next thing is rather than like fight yet another dragon. And so that it did kind of exacerbate or highlight for me the sort of frustrating aspect of these dungeons with the random encounters.
Yeah, I accidentally wasted some time in the floating continent by getting lost, and then I did not use a walkthrough because I cockily was like, it's a maze. I can figure out a maze. I could not figure out the maze, and so I played it for like an hour, and then I was like, well, I've walked around this maze a lot, and I have learned nothing, although I've learned a lot about myself and like my emotions.
that's the important.
So I actually
Shadow.
like reverted back to an earlier save, started over at the floating continent, and then just used a walkthrough like word for word and just followed it, which is not how I prefer to play, but I feel like I got the full continent experience by playing it for an hour and getting really lost.
Yeah.
So
You did.
in a way, it's like I beat it by discovering how to defeat the maze.
You could near the end jump down to the airship and then have to start over again.
I
Yeah,
did
that's-
not do that.
that's
I did
really
not
bad.
return to that airship. No way.
Some people thought that was the final dungeon, but you guys
I'm
knew that
sure.
it was not. And then, there's that annoying timer section. The timer section, as a kid, I lost to that quite a few times. And then
frustrating.
you guys both waited for Shadow. Good.
Yes.
Thankfully, you guys listened to my advice. You waited it out.
Your advice was kind of vague. Listeners, Jason's advice was like, when you have the chance to wait for a character, wait as long as possible. I think that was the advice you gave.
Yeah, it was very...
Which, like, I was like, okay, I see that I'm being asked to wait here, but
Well, because you get stressed. You're like, oh my God, it's 10 seconds left. Is he really going to show up here? And then he finally comes, and it's like a cutscene, so you don't have to worry about it. And then the big twist, the world has come to an end. This was like totally, like, speaking of things that were unprecedented and like mind blowing, like this whole concept of like the entire world coming to an end because the bad guy like actually pulled off his master plan instead of just getting like foiled at the last possible minute was mind-blowing. And you guys will see what happens because the second half of the game is entirely set in this bleak, depressing world where you'll get to go around to all the cities and like meet people who you met last time in the world of balance, which is what the first half is called, and see what this horrible world has done to them. And it's gonna be really dark, as you guys will see. But first of all, did either of you know this was coming? Maddie, like, did you have any idea this was gonna happen?
No, but I mean, there is the fact that these are mustache twirling villains, so it's not like I was like, wow, I bet Kefka in the Emperor, like the Emperor's totally going to overcome Kefka. It's all going to be fine at the end. Like, I didn't think that was going to go well, but I also did know there was more game.
Yeah, but the mustache twirling villain never actually like executes on his plan the way that Kefka did.
I guess that's true. I mean, I wasn't necessarily expecting him to like move the statues around. I mean, like in that sense, I wasn't like, oh yeah, I was surprised by that part, sure. And I wasn't expecting the world to end. I did not know that the world was going to end. That was a surprise to me.
Pretty wild.
I think Kirk knew, because I feel
wild.
like at one point, Kirk, you said you like had read ahead in a walkthrough and you knew that.
It wasn't that I
happen.
read ahead in a walkthrough. I just knew because, like, ambiently, it was just something I picked up. Like, I knew that there was a huge twist in the middle of Final Fantasy VI, and that there was like an apocalyptic thing that happened, and the whole map changed. Like, but it was like the kind of thing I'd heard ambiently, and I had never really looked into. So, playing the game, I was like, okay, I guess Kefka is gonna fuck shit up, and like the whole world is gonna end, and that's gonna lead to the second half, which is gonna be wild. But still seeing it was still effective, and I can imagine what it would have been like to play this without knowing that. And this reminds me a little of Chrono Trigger, which came out after this game, right? But Chrono Trigger plays with some of these same ideas of like with time travel added in as a mechanic, and is so like the next step after this of being like, and now we're going to make it so that you can actually warp between the worlds and like affect the timeline because it's a time travel game, but there is this future world that's all destroyed and this past world and stuff. And I like playing the game that sort of set that in motion. Like you were talking at the very beginning, Jason, about how you can just see all of these ideas that are in this game that then would go on to become, eventually become tropes, but like just also be explored in subsequent games. This definitely feels like one.
I mean, Zelda's done some of those things.
Oh, for
Nothing wrong with
sure.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Zelda, so now you guys are in the part of the game where I won't spoil anything, but like essentially after a certain point, it will become very non-linear, and it gets to the point where you can go challenge the final boss at any point achievement you want, but you're probably not going to be powerful enough. And instead, you'll want to go around like accumulating stuff and doing things, finding your party members and seeing where everyone wound up.
Do your weapons break?
Your weapons do not
Fighting
break.
some moblins, getting some
You will fight
ambulance.
moblins. Yeah. So I'm very excited to see what you guys think, because the second half of the game is it's way less linear and way less scripted, and so it can feel disjointed at times, and also it's heavier on the combat than the first half is. Heavier on the dungeon crawling, at least. So yeah, very excited to see what you guys think, but we'll have to save that for the Beans cast
For sure.
which we will do, I believe, in June is the plan. I think we'll announce it officially, but assume like anyone who's playing the game with us and wants to know how much longer they have, assume you have at least another month and a half or so to play through the rest of the game.
Yep.
So yeah, we will be back to talk more about Final Fantasy VI back then. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it more. I hope the enjoyment stays at that
Me
level
too.
as you guys finish the game. Are you both like, do you want, because last time you both wanted to like have nothing to do with the game afterwards. You were like, all right, putting it down for a while.
Well, that was more me than Kirk, I think.
Now that you've seen the world get destroyed, are you like, do you actively want to go back and play it now, or are you thinking you'll take a break again?
I kept playing it a little bit more than Kirk, I think, just because I was so curious about Celis and like what her situation was. So I like kept playing a little bit more, and it's weird enough that I'm like, wow, I want to know what's going to happen in the rest of the story. I'm not like super excited to hear this is a more combat heavy chunk of the game, because I actually care about the story, but that's okay. It's fine. I will get to hear what happens to the characters, and I will just fight my way through it.
Yeah, same. And I didn't play anymore after Celis, but actually kind of for the same reason. I was like, oh, I'm intrigued by this, and I actually really want to keep playing. So this is actually a good place to stop, because I will remember the game as, oh, it's at that point where I wanted to see what happens next, which I won't play immediately, but I'll pick it up, and I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Oh man, you guys are in for some treats. Some of my favorite parts of the game are coming up. But also just be warned. I just want to warn you guys and anyone else who's playing along that because it's non-linear, there might be some points that you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, this is very disjointed, but that's just the nature of the beast. Anyway, let's take a break, and then we'll be back with one more thing.
Are you riddled with guilt over your TBR pile?
Are you filled with shame about a book that you just can't seem to finish?
Are you having regrets because grad school killed your love of reading?
We're Reading Glasses, and we're here to help.
I'm Mallory.
And I'm Bria.
Let us absolve you of all your reading guilt.
Stuck on a book you don't like?
We'll help you dump it.
Can't figure out what to read next?
We'll recommend something in your wheelhouse.
Can't decide where to buy your books from?
We'll point you in the right direction.
No matter what you read or how you read it,
We'll help you do it better.
Reading Glasses, every Thursday on Maximum Fun.
Hey, kid. Your dad tell you about the time he broke Stephen Dorff's nose at the Kids' Choice Awards?
In Dead Pilot Society, scripts that were developed by studios and networks but were never produced are given the table reads they deserve.
When I was a kid, I had to spend my Christmas break filming a PSA about angel dust. So yeah, being a kid sucks sometimes.
Presented by Andrew Reich and Ben Blacker. Dead Pilot Society, twice a month on MaximumFun.org.
You know, the show you like, that hobo with the scarf who lives in a magic dumpster.
Doctor Who?
Yeah!
And we are back. Kirk, Maddy, it is time for one more thing. I want to go first because I'm going to leapfrog off of a point that you made earlier, Kirk, about invisible random encounters. So I've been playing Saga Frontier Remastered, which is a new Square Enix remaster of an old PlayStation 1 game that's part of the Saga series. Are you guys familiar with the Saga series at all? It's very weird.
I know what they are, but I've never played one.
Only through you.
It's incredibly weird. It's like this series of incredibly niche JRPGs that are just so complicated and like player unfriendly that like they almost make you it almost feels like they're actively working against you as a player when you play them sometimes. They're very much games that are like, that have to be taken on their own terms. They're unlike any other JRPG out there. They're games where you could get stuck and have to restart your entire save file because you did things the wrong way or like didn't grind enough and got stuck in this part of the game in a dungeon with like only one character and you can't do anything about it. So they're very much, I read this comment on Reddit or something that was like, that described it well. It was basically like, this this is a game that will meet you at its own terms, and you can either choose to like accept those terms or you can go play something else. It'll tell you to fuck off. But one of the interesting things that the remastered version does is that it adds a flee button to combat and makes it so it automatically works, so you can skip any combat encounter in the game. And that, as I've said before, that combined with fast forward, which is also in this, make random encounters so much more palatable. In Saga Frontier, they're not invisible, but they're essentially unavoidable because they're these sprites on the map that will run at you in super speed, so you're running into them constantly in dungeons and stuff. And being able to flee and just escape any encounter makes the game so much more pleasant, because you can choose, instead of having to take it at its own terms, you can be like, you know what? I don't want to fight these monsters. I'm going to grind a little bit later and play a bunch of monsters over there. And I'm just going to skip all of these combat encounters. And it makes it much more pleasant to play. It's still not a game I would really recommend to most people because it's so esoteric and so unfriendly to play. But if you're like me and you played it as a kid and you want to like go have that nostalgia blast and like see if it's as fun as you remember, then check it out. Saga Frontier Remastered. Definitely not something that either of you would give a shit about.
Yeah,
that's fine.
One JRPG is enough.
One JRPG is definitely enough. No, and this is like if I wouldn't recommend this to anyone except people who have like played the old version or like masochist. For some reason, the Saga series has been getting all this traction at Square Enix. They're like new sagas and remasters of the series. Chrono Trigger has never been touched, but like every Saga game has a remaster on the Switch. It's really ridiculous. I think it's because the guy who made the Saga series, like the big director, is still at Square as opposed to some of the other like top directors.
Right. Chrono Trigger has some like complicated
it's
stuff.
It's very much, like a politics thing. And so Square puts all this money into the Saga series of all series, but like Chrono Trigger can't even play it on Switch. Disappointing. Anyway, Maddie, what's your one more thing?
My thing is a podcast. I have been doing a lot of packing and unpacking in my life lately, so I can't recommend You're Wrong About because I already talked about that podcast a couple one more things ago. But this is a different podcast that I've also listened to a patently absurd number of episodes to. And it's called The Content Mines, and it's hosted by Ryan Broderick and Luke Bailey, and they are an American guy who currently lives in South America and a British guy. And every week they talk about weird stuff that's happening on the internet around the world and various trends emerging on social media and do their takes on it. And it's very rare that I find cultural critics who I not only agree with, but who actually have a take that heightens whatever I already thought about the weird, media discourse of the day might be. And I just really, really dig it. Like, they've talked about NFTs, they've talked about the Royals, which in particular, I don't know a ton about that. And so hearing Luke Bailey analyze it from his perspective of actually knowing about UK politics is really helpful and cool. And then to have Ryan Broderick contextualize it with like living in other places in the world and how are people reacting to it here. It just, I don't know, I learned a lot from it. And I ended up going back and listening to like every episode they recorded before the coup on the US Capitol, attempted coup, and like hearing them predict it and make their predictions based on internet trends that they were seeing, and then hearing them react to it was fascinating and weird. And I just really dug it. So I recommend this show if somebody else has way too much time on their hands and wants to hear a couple smart people talk about the internet and how people talk on it.
Kirk, what's your one more thing?
My one more thing is the third part of my trilogy that I have been creating these last few weeks on Monster Hunter Rise.
We didn't even know it was a trilogy. It's like Star Wars. You just sprung it on us.
Well, there was that big cliffhanger last week where I revealed that the Switchblade was the father of my longsword.
Right.
And my longsword cried no, and it fell into a pit. And it lost its hilt, but has a robot hilt now. It's a whole thing.
It was cool you started with episode 4, though. Like, it was confusing at the beginning, but then it was like, oh, it's part of like a commentary on tropes about one more thing.
Well, next week you're going to get into Monster Hunter World, and that'll be your prequel.
Right,
of course.
So Monster Hunter Rise. I beat the game, basically like what is there of it now, though it's going to continue to be expanded this year, but I beat the final Elder Dragon and I've reached endgame, let's say. I've played a lot of this game. I really, really, really love this game. It's the first time I've gotten into like a loot game, honestly, since like I stopped playing Destiny 2 several years ago. So it's fun to play a game like that. My thought on it, my last thought, is related again to friction, which is a thing I've been thinking about with Final Fantasy VI and with this game. Both Japanese developed games, both in long-running series from very different eras of gaming, but have some similarities in just how there's a lot of menus that aren't always easy to navigate, and that part of the joy of the game is like in spite of all of that, finding a way to have this like smooth, skillful, fun experience. And that expresses itself a lot of ways, like the way that you maximize your build and customize your menus so that you can like use the menus effectively in combat is actually like a big part of the game. Like making the game more user-friendly is part of the game. And as you get better at it, the game becomes easier to use in the menus because you've learned how to set them up. So
Wow.
There's that, but there's also like in the game itself, there's stuff that once you figure out how to use it, it's so fun and freeing and doesn't feel, or it feels like I'm navigating a bunch of like very frictiony stuff, like how it's like you can't just jump. There's no just straight jump button. But if you learn how to use the wire bugs, which are the like little like sort of grappling hooks that you can use to do all kinds of special moves, and you learn the map really well, once you know where to go, you can like hop on the back of your dog and you ride up to a wall, you jump off your dog in midair, you like shoot the wire bug to the wall, you run straight up the wall, go over the edge, off the top of the wall, then in midair, your wire bug is refreshed and you can like cast them through the air and you become like Spider-Man. You can get around the levels in this game like Spider-Man. And now that I'm good enough at that, I'm like flying around, and when I'm fighting guys, like a monster will knock me back and I'll just come flying back at him in midair and I'll like pull my sword out in midair and hit him. And then like, you know, when he runs away, I'm like flying through the level, like going through all these like really high nooks and crannies through the canyons. And it's like being Spider-Man, only in Spider-Man, you just hold down a button and like he does it automatically and you're just like flipping around and you look awesome, and you can kind of make it more complicated if you want, but that's all you have to do. In this game, it's really hard to do that. You have to have enough wire bugs. You have to know to go get the extra wire bug in that area. You have to know the level really well. You have to kind of know like where you're going, what you're doing, have a feel for the rhythms of it. But once you do, it's actually kind of more rewarding that you can be like Spider-Man and Monster Hunter because the game does not make it easy to do that, but it makes it possible. And that's been a really cool thing about this game in general.
It reminds me of a Souls game in that, like,
yes,
you get a lot out of it once you've mastered it.
And you're Spider-Man.
And you're Spider-Man, yeah.
Because of course,
well, you know,
Souls
in
games.
Bloodborne, the part where you got injected by a mutant spider, and then you start.
We all know.
For sure. And your Uncle Ben dies, and he like, you know, he's so sad.
We've seen it all before.
Yeah, it's true. So anyways, that's my kind of final thought on the game, is that part of the reason the narrative around it is that it's so hard to get into it. Like, it's just always the first thing people talk about is like, oh, I know those games are good, but it's so hard to get into it. And there is something essential to the game tied in with that difficulty, that friction, how hard it is to navigate those big chunky blocks of all of it at first, that once you've figured out how to get through them and you're skating around up above the blocks and around the blocks and you can kind of play with them in all these ways, it's really fun. And that process and then the end point of like having mastered it is so rewarding that I think it is actually kind of an essential part of why I'm enjoying the game. So that's my kind of final verdict, is that difficulty, that thing that people always complain about, is essential to the game and does make me like it more, because it's possible to reach this level of not mastery. I'm no master, but you know, expertise in it, and it's really just a great game, and I loved it.
Same with a Souls game, and but although I feel like a Souls game is probably easier to get into, like the barrier for entry is probably lower.
It's also more straightforward. There's just like not as much like navigation, and you can't like turn it into a DMC game the way that you kind of can turn, especially Rise, since they added this wire bug thing. I mean, that's what's made this one so fun. It does have this element of speed and verticality that the series hasn't had before.
Cool. All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode. Kirk and Maddy, see you both next week.
Yep. See you both next week.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddy Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Find us on Twitter at TripleClickPod, send email to tripleclick@MaximumFun.org, and find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned. Audience supported.
I thought in my head, 60 seconds. Okay, got it. And then you're like, a minute. And I was like, what? What's
that?
What?
60 seconds is a minute? What kind of nonsense is this?
No. It's 100 seconds. That
100
makes
seconds
way
is a
more
minute.
sense.
Yeah.
Right.
We're on the
Yeah,
metric
of
system
course.
of time.
The metric
Yeah,
time
100 hours per day,
Makes sense.
100
yes.
days per year.
That would be amazing.
Easier.
100 years in a century. Right. I mean, it just scales right down.
Easy,
It makes so much more
easy.
sense.
Yeah, the U.S. version where this is just all weird. 365 days in a year.
He's
Why
like,
do
what
they
do
do
you
it
use
that way?
that?
Well, it's also so confusing when you talk to your friends in England and they're
I
in
know,
April
and
and you're
they're
in
like,
September.
yeah, 100 seconds in a minute. And
Right.
It makes
Right.
deadlines really hard overseas.
It does. It really does. It makes a lot of things much more complicated than they need to be.
This explains World War II.
Let's
This is
record
the show. We're doing a
let's
great
record
job.
a show. It's true. We're doing good.